once again to my YouTube channel. I'm going to talk a little bit today about a very controversial subject that gets a lot of ground covered online, a lot of discussion in various online forums and things like that, and it tends to be quite a polarizing subject. And the subject in hand is relic guitars, or relicing of guitars, whichever way you want to say it. So yeah, I just thought I'd give my take on it because, let's face it, it's not been discussed enough by any means. But here's maybe my take. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you think completely the opposite. Maybe you think I'm a buffoon and I'm just talking from a certain orifice that produces other articles of stinkery. But perhaps you agree with me. Perhaps not. So anyway, here we go. So the whole idea of relicing, from what I understand, let's go back a little bit, right? Let's go back into history somewhat. And over the years, yes, back in the day, guitar manufacturers, in the early days of rock and roll history, and we're talking, let's go back to the 50s, say, into the 60s. Guitar manufacturers were painting guitars and then lacquering them with a certain type of lacquer that, let's face it, at the time was viewed as a bit of a flawed process, because they were using typically what's called nitrocellulose lacquer, which would wear off after a relatively short space of time, and then your paint finish would start coming off your guitar as well. And strangely enough, at one point that was actually viewed as a bad thing, and so eventually guitar manufacturers, a lot of them moved over to using like a polyurethane based lacquer for their guitars to make their guitar finishes much more durable and last a hell of a lot longer. And then at some point somebody decided, that was better the way they used to do it before, because old guitars look cool, and when they're all battered and there's bits peeling off them and all that, that adds mojo and character and all these things. And you've got a lot of players out there who are hardcore sort of touring musicians who've had the same guitars for years and years and years and wore them to the nub, who are kind of to blame for setting a somewhat of a visual trend with guitars there. And I'm thinking off the top of my head of players like Stevie Ray Vaughan, Rory Gallagher, and I could name many others, but let's just go with those two for now. Both of them played somewhat quite similar strats, actually, Sunburst 60, early 60s strats, which after a reasonable amount of battering looked phenomenally gorgeously worn and battered. And so yeah, at some point this became a popular thing and people liked it and people wanted it. But I can't quite put my finger on when people start to do this for themselves. Now here's where I kind of divide my opinion on this thing. You see, at some point, and I believe, now you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a bit of a sort of a folklore story that the whole sort of relicing thing, with as far as manufacturers was concerned, kind of started with Keith Richards, where Fender wanted to give him some new guitars, and Keith said, I can't take that thing on stage, it looks far too new. So some dude at Fender decided to have a go at making it look old for him, and apparently Keith was quite happy with that, and on he went with these new old looking guitars, and that kind of started this whole idea of manufacturers going out of their way to deliberately relic a guitar to make it look older than it actually was when they were selling it brand spanking new. So I can understand there's a lot of players out there who want these guitars that look like their heroes' guitars, that look like replicas, that have the exact sort of same markings and wear on the same places and all that, and they want exact replicas. And that, I'll be honest with you, I kind of understand the whole replica thing. If you want a guitar that looks like Stevie Ray Vaughan's guitar down to the exact bit of paint that's chipped off, I kind of get that. But it started a very unhealthy trend, I'll be honest with you, in that it seems to me a lot of players out there thought that perhaps they could gain a bit of extra mojo if their guitar looked a little bit older than it was. Now, there's a great deal of argument over what having one of these guitars does for you. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who favour these type guitars, who will say that the additional wear added to a guitar adds to the playability of it, in the sense that the neck is worn in, and the frets are rolled nicely, and all of that. And that, again, I kind of get that. If you want a guitar that feels nice to play and it feels worn in and all that, I kind of get that. But do you really need the body to be completely like mashed up and chipped and half the paint missing and all that, just to make it feel play nice? I don't think you do. Now, don't get me wrong, right? There are certain types of relics that I'm okay with, and there are certain types of relics that I just think, somebody somewhere's trying too hard. Now, it's probably easier if I just go through the types of relicing that I kind of get on board with, and that is at the high end of things, I would say. The custom shop stuff, where you want an exact replica, or you want a guitar that's been masterfully reliced and looks really flipping cool, and all that. And as far as the manufacturers are concerned, if they're doing that and they're doing it in their absolute high-end custom shop stuff, then I'm okay with that too. Where I start to get a little bit iffy with the whole manufacturing relicing side of things is where perhaps the lower end, more mass manufactured models, they start to apply relicing there. And I'm looking at you, Fender, with your road worn series of Mexican guitars. I mean, come on, right? And I just think that's so contrived. I'll be honest with you, I really do. And I actually feel quite bad for the dudes who want a relic guitar and buy into it at that level. I mean, you're not getting anything other than a guitar that looks a bit battered, and it's not really that fantastic a guitar in the first place. There's another couple of areas where I don't really get on board with the whole relicing idea, and the next one, the first one I want to talk about in that regard is where people have had a go at it themselves. I'm sorry, you've just ruined your guitar, basically. If you're a master at doing these things, great, and you've made it look fantastic, brilliant. But I've seen so many guitars out there now for sale on Reverb and eBay and all the marketplaces like Facebook, things like that, where some dude's took a belt sander to his Strat, and then is trying to sell it off as relics, and it just looks bollocks. I mean, it just looks rubbish, and it's obvious that it's been manhandled and badly done. I mean, the whole point of relicing, it has to look natural, doesn't it? Surely, don't you think? If it looks obviously, faked, then is that not a negative thing? Is that not a bad thing? Surely people are going to look at it and think, what's he done to his guitar, poor thing? Anyway, so I'm not really into that. I mean, I think that's taking the piss. And the other thing is the other part of relicing that I don't really sort of vibe and jibe with, or however you want to call it, is where people have attempted to relic modern style guitars, where somebody's took like a Super Strat type guitar, or something that was obviously made very recently and very modern, and they've just again took a belt sander to the thing, or a chisel, or whatever they want to use, and started taking chunks out of the thing, out of the paintwork and all that, and trying to pass it off as some sort of heavily played relic when it's 3 years old. Doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And doing it on low end models as well. I mean, what's the point of getting like a $200 or £150 Squire or whatever, and making it look like some dude's toured the world with it for 40 years? I don't see the point. You're not fooling anybody. You're not gaining anything by doing it, from what I can see. I mean, listen, I can guess there's going to be a lot of people out there, should any people actually watch this video, who are going to completely disagree with me and think I'm stupid, and that's fine. You can do that, and that's your opinion. But at the end of the day, there are certain acceptable levels of things, and cheapo guitars reliced up to look old, nah, sorry. Modern looking guitars reliced up to look old, nah, sorry. Custom shop, replicas and really, masterfully done by master luthiers and all that, relic to look really nice and old, I get that too. And I even get the one, the people out there who are doing little mods to their guitars to add a bit of playability to them, like sanding down the neck and rolling the frets and all that sort of stuff. If it adds playability, great. But if it's just all about the aesthetic, then I'm sorry, you're not really kidding anybody, certainly not me. So anyway, I could go on all day about this. I'm not going to. By all means, add a comment, tell me what you think, tell me if you completely disagree. I'm not saying relics are a terrible bad thing or anything. If you want one, great, go for it, enjoy it, love it, have it. But don't be surprised if when you try and sell it on, the vast majority of the people out there, as response to that is, well, what the fuck have you done to your guitar? You've ruined it. Anyway, so there you go. Needed saying? Probably not. Will many people agree with me out there? Probably not. But I just thought I'd bang this out and say it anyway, because, you know, I needed a bit of content. Whatever. So anyway, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, watch some of my other videos and stuff like that, and share it round the interwebs and all that. But yeah, hit that subscribe button down there, wherever it might be, and drop a comment and say hello. So see you later, bye.